Hey guys, Zasha Williams here with the Fight Academy podcast. This is episode 3. Today's guest is a NCBA national champion, Golden Gloves winning champion, boxing coach, and my favorite title, my wife, Zasha Williams.
Hi.
Today we just kind of wanted to come in and talk a little bit about what it's like to be a couple who fights. It's pretty rare, I feel like. I don't have too many friends that have a wife or a girlfriend or a significant other that also competes in combat sports. So I really enjoy it. We're just going to kind of talk about, kind of her journey and how she got into it, how we met a little bit and how we kind of bonded on that, and see where the night takes us. All right. So without further ado, you want to talk about a little bit about how you got into boxing, why boxing, and kind of your progression of going from not knowing how to box to becoming a national champion.
That's a story. So a lot of people don't know this, but my junior year of high school, I went to a boxing gym. It was with my dad. Essentially, he came home one day and he's like, Zasha, there's a boxing gym and they have girls there. You should go fight them. And me, not ever throwing a punch in my life, was like, yeah, I can do that. And so my dad and I went to the boxing gym and he was trying to show me how to punch a bag. And so I was punching it. And then the coach comes up to me and he goes, does she want to spar? And my dad's like, yeah, she'll spar both your girls. Both of them. So it was my first day at the gym, never fought before, went in the ring with one girl. She had been training for about 8 months, and I dropped her like in the second round, which was crazy, and I had the biggest adrenaline rush. And then my dad goes, yeah, she'll fight the other one. Just give us 15 minutes. I said, okay. And so the adrenaline rush I had was insane. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel anything. And so 15 minutes later, I'm in the ring with this other girl who had been training for 2 years. And I hit her so hard, her nose wouldn't stop bleeding.
Jeez.
And so they had to call the match. And that was my first time ever fighting. And I was like, I can do this.
Nice.
And then school got in the way. So I didn't really get to kind of pursue that dream of, that boxing dream. And so I kind of didn't really think much of it. And then I got to college and my freshman year, and I was walking through our student hall, and there was this big sign that said Husky Boxing Tryouts. And I said, I can do this. And I thought, this would be a fun story to tell the grandkids one day. Just say, yeah, your grandma boxed for a couple months in college. That's what I thought. I genuinely thought I was going to maybe train for 3 months, take a fight, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. I think my first couple rounds of sparring really skewed my idea of what boxing really was, because I thought I was so tough. And so yeah, I went to boxing tryouts. It lasted 4 weeks, and I got in the best shape of my life. We started with about 100 students trying out, boys, girls, like it was mixed. We started with 100 people trying out. We had 45 finish, and they only took 20 people for the team, and I was one of 5 girls.
Wow.
So it was not an easy.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. And so I made the team, and really my first year was just training. I didn't really spar. I didn't have any matches. Mm-hmm. I didn't really get a lot of one-on-one time with the coach. I just trained and shadow boxed. And it wasn't until my second year that I really dived in and or dove in.
Yeah, semantics.
I really dove in and started going pretty hard at the gym. And by my sophomore year, the end of sophomore year, my first year competing, I ended up making it to nationals somehow. Don't know how, but I made it to nationals, and I actually placed second.
Nice.
which was really cool, and I was not expecting. And so by my sophomore year, got second. After that, I was made the team captain for the next year.
Yeah. Hey.
It's fine. I was made the team captain for next year. And that was the year, like, I'm someone that needs to lead by example. So I said, they can't have someone who places second at nationals. So I had to be, I had to be the person to win. And so my, at nationals that second time, my junior year, it was insane just because, well, let me kind of backtrack. I was the one leading tryouts that year, and just a personal achievement. We had 150 people try out, which is the largest tryout we've ever had.
Nice.
And my goal was to get a third of them to quit. And so by the end of tryouts, we only had 50 people. Or sorry, my goal was to only have a third finish. And by the end of tryouts, we only had 50 people finish.
Wow.
So I was pretty proud of that.
Nice.
And so that whole year was just me and my co-team captain, Jasper, just really working to help the team get better, help the team become a national winning team. The years before this, our women's team had won nationals 3 years in a row. And so it was our goal to win a fourth year.
Nice.
And our men's team had never placed. So it was our goal just to get us on the board. And so when we went to nationals, it was honestly the hardest 3 days of my life. It was hard because, well, physically, fighting is really hard.
For sure.
But also just seeing my teammates who should have won and didn't win, or had the skill but just didn't perform. It was just so difficult seeing their dreams kind of get crushed.
Yeah. And
so I just felt more pressure, more weight to win, because I felt like I was carrying the team on my back, in a sense. And so, yeah, first day goes by. First time I had a stoppage by the ref. That was really fun.
Nice.
Second day goes by. It was a super difficult fight. And so the third day comes, and I just remember waking up and thinking, I'm going to be a national champ. There wasn't any doubt. There wasn't any cockiness. It was just a fact. Mm-hmm. I knew I was going to be a national champ that day.
Nice.
Which was really cool. And so that day we sent 5 people into finals, and all 5 of us came out as national champions.
That's awesome.
So it was an amazing day, and I just.
And the team, how'd they place?
So our women's team got second, and our men's team got third.
Nice.
So we were really happy about that, just because they had never placed before.
Yeah.
And it's just a huge accomplishment because the UW boxing isn't like a school-funded sport, so it's just all volunteer, all donations, just all fundraisers. That's the only way we gain support.
Yeah.
And we train outside of school hours, unlike other athletes, how they have this athletic schedule and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so at other schools, especially the military schools, they are funded by the school, so they have a schedule and they have the support. And so the men's team, especially, always Army, Navy, they always win. And so for a non-military school to win was just huge.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. And yeah, so that was my junior year. And then my senior year, that's when I went and placed at Golden Gloves. I didn't go to nationals. I just went to state and regionals. But it was still an experience. It was so funny going to regionals and having to compete at 132, and then a week later having to cut to 125. So having that weight cut was insane, but still did it. I unfortunately only got third at nationals that next year. And it's the way it rolls, and that's okay.
Yep.
So, but no one's gonna ever take away the fact I'm a national champ. So
Never. No.
I live by it.
I mean, it's right there. That will always be here.
So yeah, it's kind of my journey. And now I don't really compete. I don't compete. I just train people. I train myself personally. It's just something I really enjoy. And it's going on almost 10 years.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. Is competing at something that you ever want to try doing again, or
maybe,
you feel like you're done?
Maybe one more fight. I don't know if it's something. It's not my biggest priority,
Mm-hmm.
just because I know the intensity that I had to train out
Yeah, for sure.
in college. I just remember, 6 hours a day, running, lifting, swimming, sparring, training, like just nonstop. And I'm an adult now, so I don't really have 6 hours. gotta
To
pay
just
some,
chill.
gotta pay some bills.
Yeah.
So, I think it would be really hard to be awesome, but that's kind of why I like jujitsu, because I don't have to run as much.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu now? Glad you brought that up.
I've been training. I trained for a year pretty solidly, and then kind of had, again, work stuff come up that I haven't been able to train consistently. So technically, I've been off and on for 3 years, but it's just something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's the transition for you from being a striking athlete, being on your feet, to then trying to transition to grappling and learn what it's like to not strike, but hold people, bring them to the ground, roll around on the ground? What's that transition kind of been like for you?
I don't think physically it's been difficult. The grips for jiu-jitsu, it's all forearm strength, which is also something very big in boxing. Some of the footwork is like the athletic movements are kind of similar for jiu-jitsu. So it actually hasn't been difficult. I think the biggest part is mentally trying to go back to like being a student, because right now with boxing, I'm a coach and I've been training for almost 10 years. So I know what I'm doing, and to go from like this high mentality to like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing at all.
Yeah.
And I can't punch my way out of this. I have to grapple.
Yeah.
And so that's been something that I've had to really kind of deal with. And I guess that's not physically, but mentally.
Yeah. It's a different mental game. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's right. We talk about in combat sports all the time is a lot of your matches or your fights or whatever. There's a huge skill and strength component, but that mental game, if your mental isn't prepared for that, it doesn't matter how good you are compared to the other person, there's a high chance you're going to lose that fight. So what are some things that you've been kind of using to help that mental as you go into it?
As in like jiu-jitsu, like overcoming that.
Yeah.
I think I think the biggest thing was just realizing that it's okay to be a beginner. I think I put the own pressure on myself, as in like, oh, I'm a national champion, so they expect me to perform well, and no one expects that but myself. And so just recognizing that it's okay to be a student, and it's okay to learn, it's okay to make a mistake. I think just accepting it has really helped with like tenfold with that.
For sure. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about like your coaching. How do you like becoming a coach? Because I know for myself, I wrestled in college and high school, and then when I was done with that, I went into coaching. And in my situation, there was a sense of unfinished business when it came to my wrestling, because I stopped short, and so when I was coaching the kids, there was part of me that really just wanted to be on the mat myself. And hi, girl. Okay. But then I got the opportunity to go back to compete, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. But at that point, I really just started missing my boys and missing all the guys that I was training and coaching. And I realized how much of a passion I had for coaching. So how's your passion for competing then also translated into your passion for coaching?
I will start off by saying I think coaching just kind of happened naturally, because after college I didn't have a job, so I had to coach.
Yeah.
And so that was great. I do think that I've had to definitely grow and learn that everyone's style is not my own, or my own style does not fit everyone. I'm very short, so my Mexican inside fighting is not going to help.
Yeah.
Someone who's very long. So having to just get better as a boxer because I need to help my boxers get better. But I think my personal favorite thing about being a coach is just seeing when a fighter gets it, like when it clicks, because they always struggle, and there's always like, I don't know how this works. My body like feels awkward and it just doesn't feel right. And then just seeing them become comfortable in the ring and just knowing how to throw a punch and just having reactions, and then seeing them when they're sparring and just being super scared, being nervous, not really knowing what to do. And then just having it click and know how to actually react to a punch. And I think my personal favorite is when they're tired and they're hurting, but then you just see them find something inside themselves to push through.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I love about combat sports in general is it's not easy. I mean,
For sure.
It hurts, it's tiring, it's hard, a lot of mental game, but then being able to just push past it and find something deeper, like that's what I think makes a true fighter, is not someone who's physically good, not someone who is the most skilled and has the most athletic ability and natural ability. It's someone who's able to find it deep within themselves, to keep pushing and keep getting up even when it's hard. And so I love seeing that with fighters, and just because I know how it felt for me, and I love seeing that for other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember when I was coaching and seeing my boys just, like you said, overcome those hard times, or when it clicks. I remember Christian. I remember his senior year. There was a point in the season where it just clicked for him, and he started going on a tirade. And then we got to postseason, and he pinned every single kid. I think it was pin or tech. No, I don't think he teched everybody. I think it was pin. I think he pinned everybody in districts and everybody at regionals.
That's insane.
And I think he only wrestled a total of the 6 matches. I think he only wrestled like a total of like 6 minutes or something like that. Like he just went in and just started, like barely went out of the first round of any of the matches, if any, and just tore it up. And I just remember being so pumped. There's a picture of us where he like pins his guy at regionals in the finals, and he's all like amped up, and then I'm like standing on the side just like, oh, and like that's like one of my favorite pictures I've ever had as a coach. But it was just so awesome to watch him grow into this awesome wrestler, because like I think he was he in junior high when I was a senior? He might have been a junior high kid, so I got to watch him from like as a older peer to then as a coach, to kind of just see his growth. And unfortunately he got screwed at state, and didn't even get to compete. Had a skin infection that we had a doctor's note for, but the ref,
they aren't ready for the smoke.
Yeah, the ref was not about it. And that honestly, in the same regard, that was probably the toughest thing I've ever had to do as a coach, is coach through that.
Yeah.
Because you're at state, at some point it's going to end, right? And we all know that. And so you're, as a coach, you kind of prepare for, okay, if they lose, if they don't win state or whatever, like, how do I coach them back? Because you get 2 and out. So if they do lose at some point, how do I coach them to come back strong? And if they do end up not placing, or if they end up placing lower than they want to, how do I coach through that? But it never once crossed my mind that he wouldn't even be able to step on the mat that day. And so I was at a loss for words of just disbelief. Because like we're saying, like the amount you put into training, like he put in so much work that year, put in so much time, so much effort, to not even be able to compete. And I mean, he was ranked, I think, like 4th in state at that point. Like I said, he was destroying everybody. And so that was rough. Shout out to Christian though. It's true. He's a trooper.
Dang.
Yeah.
I think one thing I really admire about you, I mean, I get the benefit of you being my husband, so I get this all the time. But I've also seen you with your fighters, is just how encouraging you are, and like helping them push past the mental barrier. I think I'm great at helping with pushing past the physical and pushing, like having to physically push past stuff.
Yeah.
But I also struggle with pushing past. I wouldn't say struggle. I think my mentality when I lose is like, just don't. Like that's so then I just don't lose don't lose next time. Like it's very simple for me, but I know it's not for a lot of people. And so actually seeing you in action with your fighters and being able to encourage them and help them to, you know, feel better about themselves as a fighter and as a person is just so cool to see.
And that was something that I had to learn because I was kind of the same for a long time. Kids would lose and I'd be like, just be better.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to lose, then train harder. Just get better. Don't complain about it. Don't pout about it. You know what you gotta do. Let's train.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I went to that second college, when I had left, I'd been coach for a while and I left halfway through season and went to go compete for myself. I had not competed in like 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you were saying, the switch of having to be a competitor to coach and learn how to coach, I had to then learn how to be a coach and switch into competitor again.
Mm.
And for a while, it was hard for me to be up to practice because a lot of these kids were like 18, 19 years old, and I was like 21, 22. And
You're so old.
I was so old to them.
Oh man.
But I was like, man, like you're like the kids I was just coaching last year. And so to me, there'd be times where we'd be at practice and I would like give up position or I would go a little like less hard because I was like, oh yeah, you're preparing for your match. And I was like, wait, I'm preparing for a match too. Like what am I doing? Like I can't do that. And so I actually got dominated when I went back. It was also halfway through season, so they all had the first half of season to prepare and prep. My cardio was not there. I had not been running. Like,
surprised.
It was. I got the call to come wrestle, and I left. I think that next week.
Oh wow! Okay.
So there was no time
Very
to prepare.
short notice.
Yeah. So I was gassed, and
why did they call you like halfway through the season? That's.
It's funny. I was we had like a sleepover for our wrestling team that I was coaching. And we were watching a documentary on Terry Brands, the Iowa wrestler. And I got remember because at that point I had left early from Grand Canyon.
Your neck was too thick.
What?
Your neck was just
my neck was
massive.
My neck was
like your neck and your head.
I left early there because I was not taking wrestling seriously. I was getting in trouble, and so I came home. But I felt like there was unfinished business, and like that. I mean, that was the whole thing with Terry. Is he just felt like he needed to keep going, and so I like got really emotional about it, and I just started doing sprints on the mats. Like all the kids are watching the documentary, and I'm just out there sprinting and shadow wrestling and sprawling and shooting and sprawling and sprawling and shooting and sprinting. And my coach is like, gets up and gets like an inspirational speech. You see this? He's got unfinished business, and like goes off and whatever. So my coach had called the other coach and was like, hey, I think my assistant needs to get back out there.
Yeah.
And so they called me that next day. And he was like, honestly, I do need a 141 pounder.
Nice.
And Coach Pete says you're about that size, so. Like,
give or take 20 pounds.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I could do it.
You're like 170.
I mean, I cut down to 137. I got pretty small.
Jeez.
As we were getting ready, I made it to nationals. So
nice.
I was getting beat up for a long time. That first bit, I was just getting dominated. That's what we were getting to.
Yeah.
I was getting beat up over and over and over. And so when I got back to my kids to coach, I had a whole new perspective because that wasn't my life before. Like when I was wrestling in high school, I wasn't losing like I was in college. At college. And so I never had that perspective as much. And so it really gave me more empathy to the kids who were losing, and it completely changed my coaching style. And I think for the better, obviously, because I was able to empathize and then encourage and be like, hey, but we yes, we need to get better. Get better.
Yeah.
But let me walk alongside of you and make sure that we can get to that point. So definitely made me a little bit more, empathetic to my guys and understanding. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I think my favorite thing about us being a couple that fights together, it's not the training, because we fight when we train.
We cannot train together. That's not a thing.
Yeah,
nope.
when we're boxing, he gets frustrated because I'm more advanced. When we're doing jiu-jitsu, I get frustrated because he's more advanced, and it doesn't work out. So,
yeah.
But
we can do little things like she can hold mitts for me.
We can drill.
We can drill. She asks questions about like things to do when we're grappling. Like we can help each other there. But if it's like we're at practice, nah, it's not good. So we just know we get to practice and just. I will see you after practice in the car, and we can discuss how it went.
We discovered that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think we first started dating. When we first started dating, we also first started jiu-jitsu together. And so I think we try to push past of like, oh no, we can train together. We're meant to be. No, I mean, we're meant to be, but we're also not meant to train together.
Yeah, 100%. Two totally different things.
Yeah. So, but when we train fighters together, I think that's one of my favorite things, because it's so nice. Like George, shout out to George Collins.
Shout out George, episode 1. Go back and watch it.
Yes. He has the craziest sayings. You'll love it. But it was so fun, like training George together, because I'll be working on him with boxing and working on his technique and seeing points where he was weak at. And then I tell Xavier, like, hey, George needs to work on his rotation for this and that. And so X would take that week and then work on his rotation. And then George would come back the next week. And then you could see he was more powerful. His rotation was better. I'm like, cool, now he needs to work on this. And so we'd go back and forth. And it's nice because then I would ask X, like, how would I optimize this power with this movement? And it's really fun to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Growing up, I wasn't trying to be a boxer ever. And so to see that this is my life and to see that this is where it took me is just so fun. Yeah. So cool.
No, I agree. That was a really fun time when we could probably go back now and kind of look at where he's at now and see things we should be working on. But
George, hit us up.
Yeah. But it was really cool when you first told me, hey, he needs to work on rotation, I was like, oh, okay. Like I already got stuff in mind that we could start doing. And then I think it was one day you just texted me a video of him and was like, hey, check this out. And he looked so good. He was just rotating well. And, for him, we really had to learn how to disassociate his upper body with his lower body, right? Because when he'd rotate before, he couldn't have his hips move opposite of his upper body, and it'd be all one thing, and it wasn't working. And so we really honed in on trying to have him stay stable up top and be able to move his pelvis and move his hips, and then vice versa. And so it was really cool then to see, oh yeah, what I am doing with these guys is translating well over to the actual practical skill piece of it. And that's the goal, right? That's the goal of Fighters Academy, is to make sure that these guys are progressing and getting better at their sport. So he's the only one that we've been able to collaborate on, because George goes to her boxing gym and also comes to see me. So, but yeah, the more I can do that, and it's cool because I can talk to other coaches too. Like I could talk to Coach Ben at Kaiju about certain guys and what they need to be working on or whatever. And but to be able to come home and discuss that type of stuff with my wife, like, what a blessing! What a blessing! I never thought, I've always loved combat sports. I've always loved fighting and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and MMA, but I honestly never thought that, one, my wife would be into it, but then two, that she would be actually in it as well. That is so cool. That was the biggest selling point when I first met her. I was like, yeah, this is fantastic.
Yeah, when we first met, I knew you weren't, because you had told me you wrestled, and I knew you hadn't done any other combat sports. Yeah. But I saw you, and I'm like, you can fight.
Yeah,
I'll get him there. I'm
pretty sure very soon into us first meeting, you're like, let me see you punch. I was so intimidated. I was like, I know you know what you're doing. Like, I've never had to throw a punch for someone who's an actual boxer. So I started throwing punches. You're like, that's actually pretty good. I would change this, this, and this. But I was like, oh, okay. Like, still trying to impress her, you know? I can't look like a scrub. Like, if I started throwing punches and you were like, I would be like, oh no, this isn't gonna work.
I think I needed to see if he could actually fight, because that was a big, like on my checklist, that was a big one. So if I saw that punch and it wasn't good, we probably wouldn't be here.
Yikes! Praise God.
Yeah, but you had that natural ability, so it worked out. And now you're over here training every day, and I love it. I love to see you do that. It is, I think, other couples who fight together know that training does take a lot of time, and so one thing we've really had to work on, or not work on, and just like be mindful of, is finding time to spend together.
Yes.
Because as much as I love combat sports, as much as Avery love combat sports, I think we ultimately love each other more. I hope.
I'd say so.
And so, not forgetting like where all of this comes from. So that's been something that we've been learning, and I think it's been going pretty good.
Yeah.
Hasn't been too difficult.
No, I mean it's nice because, like you said, if you want to hang out one night and I'm like, hey, I really need to go to practice tonight, you totally understand. Doesn't mean you always like it. Don't always like it, but you get it. And I think that's what you need. Even if you weren't a fighter, like if you are a fighter out there and you have a significant other that doesn't fight, and you want the relationship to work, like they need to understand why you have to go train. You know, if you want to actually take this to a point of competing and taking this seriously, if this is just a hobby for you, then that's one thing. But if it's something that you're really truly passionate about and want to like put the time and effort in to get good and compete well, like your partner has to know that fighting and training is a huge priority for you, that you have to be at practice sometimes, and it sucks. You're gonna have to sacrifice time, but ultimately that's a necessity, because you can't go into a ring or a cage and not be prepared, because it does not end well.
No, and I think one of the things that I guess one of the benefits of me competing before, then now you training to compete, is I understand how, I mean, combat sports, called combat sports for a reason, they're dangerous, you know? And if you're not training constantly, you can get really hurt in the ring. And I think some people go in not realizing that training is not only to learn how to fight, but also learn how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And so as much as sometimes it can be difficult when you have to go train, I also understand that, as I've had to accept that because you're going to compete, you're also going to be put into a dangerous situation. So I want you to be as prepared as possible.
For sure.
So that's also kind of a mindset that I've had to to believe and come across, or I don't know.
Yeah. To kind of wrestle with and understand.
Yeah. But it's going good.
I like it.
Yeah. I like you.
I love you.
Oh.
And I like you.
Yeah. So I think my biggest, like, being married to you is very, not, obviously it's amazing.
I hope so.
It's amazing, but also very convenient as a boxer because I get hurt. And I was hurt from a long time ago. I got in a car crash and hurt my back, and I went through physical therapy, and I was in 7th grade, so I was really young. I was 12 years old. Went to physical therapy, kind of was able to fix it a little bit, and it was fine until I got to high school, and just, I don't know, where my back would just give out. It's just insane, because I was 17, my back shouldn't just be giving out. No. And so I always knew this about me, and I kind of accepted it as, my back just gives out, and I gotta be careful not do these situations, or like warm up this way.
Yeah.
And so when I got to boxing, I knew that, and it'd be crazy because I'd just be sparring, and then I'd take one step with the jab, and then I'm like, well, I can't train for a week because my back is giving out, but I'll be fine. You know, so it was just something I accepted. And then when I met you and you were like, yeah, I can fix it, I thought you were crazy. I really did. And I was like, you can't fix it, but okay, I'm gonna entertain this.
I'll throw him a bone.
Yeah. And so when I got in the gym and you're like, did all your stuff, and you're like, close your eyes, look to the left, do this. I was like, all right, whatever. I don't know what you're doing, but you're pretty cute, so I guess I'm gonna do it. And then you're like, yeah, you can't, your back is hurting because you can't rotate your wrist. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can rotate it, X. It's fine. You're like, no, you can't. And you're like, look, and then you like did something, and I realized I couldn't rotate it, and you're like, yeah, just do this. And you held my hand and then just applied pressure in the direction I couldn't really hold my wrist. And so I was probably there for 30 minutes just rotating my wrist. And then now my back hasn't hurt. And so I don't know what he did, but it worked.
Yeah. I remember that. Kind of supinate. And
Supinate.
yeah, supination.
I do think he's making up most words, but I go along with it.
Supination. It's like, your palms facing up like in a whole bowl of soup. So you remember that. Supination. Yeah.
Oh.
It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, he was like, you can't supinate, so you can't rotate your shoulder, and so you're overcompensating, and now you can't rotate your back. So let's practice your wrist. I'm sorry, I'm saying it like making fun of you, but I'm sorry, it still shocks me that all these, literally from 12 years old, and we met when I was 25, so 13 years, I had just accepted that my back was hurting, and then we do half a session, 30 minutes, and then you fix my wrist, and now for going on almost 3 years, my back hasn't hurt. And so it's just insane, and I just appreciate what you do so much, not only because I'm your wife and I support you, but also as oh my gosh, Yue's on the couch and she knows she's not supposed to be, but she knows we're distracted. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, I not just appreciate what you do as a wife and support you what you do as a wife, but also as a boxer and as a fighter, seeing how you help me and how you help me be able to train and be just healthy for training. Just makes me appreciate what you do. And so I love that I see your Fighters Academy and like what you're doing with your fighters grow, because I know what it did for me, and that was me not even competing. That was just me wanting to train because I enjoy it. Yeah. So I can only imagine for your fighters who are doing this to actually fight and to actually compete, and that they're able to also be healthy and feel what I felt. It makes me really happy. So thank you.
You're welcome. I love it too. It's I think I've said in the last couple of podcasts, it's just I love helping people. I love seeing people be able to compete at their highest level. When I first got into all this, I originally my original plan when I first was getting into college, and what I wanted to do was open up a wrestling facility and have a place where wrestlers could come and have a club team and train, and that's what I wanted to do. And then my knee started hurting from all my wrestling, and my buddy Curtis, he started working on me, and my knee's not hurt, and I was like, well, that's cool. Like maybe I'll look into that type of training once I've got this facility and everything, and I think that might be a good thing to have implemented in it. But it was more of like the afterthought. I ended up starting taking those courses to learn all this stuff, and then it quickly became the forefront. It was like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to see people not hurt, because I feel like the fighting or the combat community is such an overlooked population. We get all like the fancy training and equipment and facilities and everything for, football, basketball, baseball. They get everything. You go to any campus, college campus, like that's where all the money's getting dumped into. Unless you're like, Iowa or Penn State or something like, the wrestlers they're obviously getting taken care of. But for the most part, you go to your schools, especially over here on the West Coast, and, wrestling is not as big as it is on the East Coast. And so I was like, man, I want to make sure that population is getting taken care of. And so that's just been my passion going into it. And the more I learn and the more I now dive into the actual sports of MMA and kickboxing, jiu-jitsu and all that, it's just like so much more fun because now I'm really understanding how those sports work.
Mm-hmm.
I really understood wrestling, and I think it's a good foundation as I'm going into those new sports to understand how you move and everything. But there's nothing like actually being in the sport and
Mm-hmm.
learning from the coaches and learning on yourself. And I use myself as a guinea pig all the time. Like right now, what I'm really trying to work on, kicking people in the head. My hips are not open right now. Like it's so hard for me to get my leg up there. After I warm up a little bit and everything, I can start to do it. But like that's something that I want to start working on for myself and trying to get myself better at that. So then I can learn how to apply that to my fighters who might be struggling with that as well. Because who doesn't love a nice head kick? You know what I'm saying? Like it's a nice thing. So I mean, Leon Edwards versus Usman, classic. Gaethje, classic. Holly Holmes, classic. Like
she wasn't even a kick. That's what's crazy. She wasn't even a kickboxer.
Yeah.
And she still just one kick and she was done. Just
so yeah.
Ronda Rousey was out. Now she's a WWE star, so it's crazy.
And that girl's whole career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to work on that stuff for myself, and then I can start to apply that for other people and really help them. So.
Yeah, I think it's really fun seeing you learn new things because then you explain it to me and I'm like, oh, that's why I do this and that. Like the terrestrial, what was it again? The terrestrial and
aerial.
Is it aerial? That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, aerial, like creating motion from top down, or terrestrial, creating motion from bottom up.
Yeah, so simple terms. There's two types of people. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. But there's two types of people, and some people rely heavily on the bottom, which is like their legs, and some people rely heavily on their top, like their arms and their abs or something. Yeah. And I'm a terrestrial, which is why I don't have abs. So
I wouldn't say that.
No, I am a terrestrial, and Xavier's aerial, and so it just makes sense why. Like for me in boxing, like a lot of my power is generated from moving my hips and just moving them really quickly. And it also makes sense why, because my movements are so heavy, I had to work really hard on footwork because I wasn't light on my feet. I was you hear me walk.
Yes.
I'm just like I'm not light.
Yeah.
And so in boxing, I really had to work on my footwork. And this was just me as a fighter, like not knowing this. I mean, I just learned this a couple of weeks ago, but as a fighter, like knowing that I had to work on my rotation, work on my footwork. And then now that I talked to Xavier and he's like, yeah, you're a terrestrial. I'm like, this all makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's just really cool because now we're talking, we can kind of know how to help fighters now. And, if they're aerial, they have to generate force from the top. And how does that translate to boxing or jiu-jitsu or terrestrial, and how does that translate? So just these things are pretty fun.
It's cool stuff. I'm still learning about that. I haven't dove too deep into it, but I'm still trying to, and that's gonna be life, right? I'm gonna always try to be learning more and always studying and picking brains of people around me that are in the same field, and trying to learn how I can apply that to my guys. A lot of the guys at the gym that I work at, they're a lot of baseball guys. I loved baseball growing up. I have nothing against baseball. I'm just combat. So, learning from them and seeing what they're doing and then trying to apply it, like, okay, how can I leverage that and apply it to what I do and the guys that I have in front of me? And so there's a lot of times they'll be talking about things and I'm like, does this make sense? If I'm using it with a fighter and they're doing this and this, they're like, oh yeah, I never even thought about it that way. So it's like Q was working with me the other day and he was looking at me and they just took this course. I haven't taken the course yet, but he was messing with stuff and like seeing like where my visual is, like how I see. And he was basically saying like, I'm really good at seeing stuff up top and not so well at seeing stuff below. And then he was like trying to figure out how to explain this as a fighter, because he talks about like with baseball players, depending on where you see, like you look, oh man, how did he say it? Like you look below the ball or above the ball or something as a batter and like trying to like hone in on like when to swing and how do you actually watch them. I'm not baseball, so I don't know, but it's something like that. And then he was like, oh, I mean, and I was like, well, what about this? When I'm sparring guys, I can read punches really well. I am terrible at reading kicks. He was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense because you can read everything up top and stuff below. He's like, so try this. Next time you spar, he's like, where do you look at normally? And I was like, I'm usually looking at like, oh, I just hit that. I was like, I'm usually looking at like collarbone, chest area, and kind of seeing how their shoulders and stuff are moving. He was like, cool, look a little lower. And I was like, all right, I'll try that. So I went to sparring that week, and I started looking more like sternum. And I was still doing well with my head movement and reading punches, but the legs opened all the way up for me. And I was like, yo, I can actually see what's going on down here. And he was like, I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, this is where you live. You live up here. And it's harder for you to read stuff down here. So, you know, as a fighter, like I would have never known that if he didn't work on me with that type of stuff. So it's like those types of things that I'm trying to like pick their brain, because it'd be great to let my fighters know, like, hey, you see things more lower, you see things more upper or whatever. And, you know, how do we leverage that for you? Because I don't think there's just one way to fight, right? Every fighter is going to be different. There's so many different styles of fighting. There's so many different ways you can go in there. You know, the coaches will teach you the mechanics of it, but how you actually implement those mechanics is going to be different person to person to person. And so if I can start to help these guys understand how their body actually moves and functions, I think that's just really going to propel them.
Yeah, I think what makes a really great fighter is not someone who's trying to replicate another fighter what they saw, but someone who just sits in their body and does what their body does best.
For sure.
You know, everyone tries to copy Mayweather with his Philly shell and not getting hit, but no one's Mayweather.
No.
Mayweather made up that style. You know, Canelo, he's really good at fighting inside all these combos. You know, really powerful. Because that works for his body and that works for his style.
Yep.
You know, and it's really amazing seeing that. And so, I don't know, I just think with fighting, I think the beauty of it is being able to create your own style. And yeah, there's obviously things that work. Like these are the mechanics,
for sure.
Right? Those are the mechanics work, but how you put those together is just amazing. It's not like it really is a dance.
Yeah.
When you're fighting.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's my 2 cents.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I would like to say I love my husband.
I love my wife.
And I love our dog. She's staring at us. She wants attention. But no, I'm glad that I've been telling Xavier to do this for the longest time.
She has.
And so I'm glad that he's finally filming a podcast, because I get to see what he does every day, and I get to hear about all the advancements and every discovery that he comes across. And so I'm just share this with other fighters, because I know how valuable it was to me. So
yeah.
I'm glad you're doing this, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you to one day, hopefully do a fight, because I still haven't seen her fight in real life. I've just seen videos, and
you should have just met me earlier.
God's timing, babe. You know, God is perfect in all of his ways. So who am I to tell him otherwise? So, yeah, I think you should probably look into trying to get a fight again after this wedding season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, she's an awesome wedding planner, by the way. That's why she's been so busy.
Wedding by day, fighting by night.
Love it, love it. So
it's love and fighting.
Yeah.
It's the best combination.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
On our honeymoon, side note, because I think we're wrapping up, but on our honeymoon, we spent it literally fighting at boxing gyms and jiu-jitsu gyms. Like we didn't, like it was just.
Yeah, we went to Hawaii and we're like, yeah, the beach is cool, but let's go box and do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was so fun seeing their styles on like an island style. It's just.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing like we're talking about this a second ago about everyone's style is different. It's cool seeing different areas and how they compete. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
sweet. All right, guys. Well, that about wraps it up for episode 3. Mm-hmm. Tune in next time. I already got who I'm going to interview in mind. I'm gonna let you guys wait on that, but
I don't even know who it is.
it's gonna be fun. I think you guys will like it. It'll be a little bit different, but I think you guys will like it. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll tell you in about 10 seconds when this is done.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool. All right, y'all. Have a great day. Stay safe out there. Keep training. Peace.